So my name is Paul McGuire. Just wanted to let you guys know that Jennifer McGugan is going to be doing most of the PII training today. So she's got a live screen showing right now. She'll be walking through the program, explaining all the changes that we've done to document packages in the payroll area and the labor interviews area. So she'll be going through the application. We'll try to do it a little slow because I know we have WebEx also mirroring the Skype session, and there's like a 5 to 10 second lag on that. So if you can't connect to the Skype session, I think Carrie's got a WebEx going that's mirroring that. And yeah, all right, I'll let Jennifer take over. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Okay, as Paul said, today we're basically going to go over the changes that are being made to RMS as it relates to the PII. So in the past, we have stated that no PII data should be entered into RMS. However, there have been times that that actually needs to be done. So RMS has been updated to ensure the safety of that PII data. Now, what government users will notice is that once this goes out without the proper permissions, they will not be able to see and have access to labor interviews, contractor payrolls, the labor folder in the contractor file module, and when they export archived contract files, they will not be able to see anything from that labor folder. So what I will do is I'll go ahead and show you these things, and then I will also show you how to go about and granting users access to be able to do PII. So let me go ahead and bring this up. All right, so as you can see right now, my screen is already set to the staff module in the district. This is our test district right here. So what you'll normally see is when you go to the staff module, there are two things that you will notice. In order for you to be able to access PII, we have set up two types of users. We have PII users and we have PII admins. The PII admins are the ones who will be granting access to everyone else who needs access to either the labor interviews module or the contract files. What you will notice is if you are a PII admin, when you go into your staff record, there are a couple of things that have changed. The first thing that you will see is you will now have this button here that enables PII access. And you will also have this checkbox down here that tells you that you are a PII admin. The only way that you are able to become a PII admin is to have the request sent to the RMS Support Center, and we set that up for you. So the government is going to send us a list of 2 people from each district, most likely, that will become the PII admins. And then you will be responsible for ensuring that those users who need access to the PII documents will be granted access through their staff record. Now, just because you are a PII admin does not mean that you have access to those same records. If you also need access to that, then what you need to do is you need to enable the PII access for your own user. To do that is the same as with other users. You just click on Enable PII Access, and it will ask you for a PII training expiration date. This date is based off of the UPass PII training certificates that all government users need in order to go into, to get onto their government computers. So depending on the district and the district policy, you will need to get verification as to when the expiration date is for their UPass PII training certificate. Some districts might require that the users send them an email with a copy of that certificate just to verify that date. Once you have that date, see, it looks like someone is not able to see my screen. Are other people still able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen. We're recording this session too, so those of you that can't see the screen, we'll be posting a video on our YouTube channel that has this whole recording. So this is all being recorded. Okay.
So what we've got going on, once you have the date of expiration for their PII, you're going to click on this just to pick the date. So it's usually, let's say my training was done on the 6th of October in 2020. So that means that it's going to expire October 2021 on the 6th. So let's find October, and there's October 21, and here's the 6th. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and that enters the date. Now, once I've done that, I can click OK. And it's going to go ahead and update. Once it's updated, now I have access to the PII documents as well as being a PII admin. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you what the user is going to see before they get PII access, and then how to go about giving them PII access so that they can actually go through that. So I'm going to switch screens. Let me go ahead and bring that up. And this is the user that currently does not have PII access. And we will give them access in just a moment. So when the new release comes out, until the PII access has been granted, I'm going into our test database right now. Once the PII access has been granted, they'll be able to see everything that's in the modules that we need. So I'm going to go ahead and go in our test contract. This is 1660. This is one that we use for testing various different problems. I'm just going to go ahead and load. It takes a few minutes sometimes. Now, most of the things that we're going to see is going to be under the administration tab. Inside the administration tab, the government has the access of looking for the contractor payrolls or the labor interviews. Now, if you don't have the PII access, when you click on labor interviews, this is the message that you're going to see: insufficient privileges. So the user is not going to be able to actually see anything in here until they've got PII access. The other thing is in contractor payrolls. It's the same thing. It says insufficient privileges, contractor payrolls. So they will need to present their PII training certificate to the district admin who has PII admin rights. Now that's very important because not all district admins will have PII admin rights. There will only be a few selected district admins who will have this permission. The other thing that is effective when you go to the back to the administration tab, you're going to go into the contract file module. So when you come into the contract file module, it'll take it a few minutes to load. Once it loads, what you will notice is there's a folder here that's missing. It goes from A, B, and then it goes to D. That's because C is where the labor interviews as well as the contractor payroll files reside. And if they don't have PII access, again, this is what they're going to see. So what we need to do is we're going to go ahead and give this user PII access permissions. So back on my other screen, I'm going to hit the back button to get out of my staff record for the PII admin. And I'm going to go into the staff record for the user that needs PII access. So in this case, as you can see, this person did have PII access once upon a time, but it has since expired because it was expired on 10/1/2020. So in order to update this, you've already gotten the documents from the user stating that here's my updated UPass PII certificate showing that, hey, I've updated it for a whole nother year. And you'll also notice that down here, this checkbox is not checked. This box is only checked for the PII admin, not the PII users. So you're going to click on Enable PII Access, and then you're going to add the new date. If the date is already in there and it's about the same, then you can make it easy on yourself and just add the date instead of using this little drop-down box which shows you all of the months so you can choose from. But it's up to you. You can either enter it in this format or you can click on the calendar button and choose it off of the calendar. When you are done, you're going to click OK, and it will update the record. And as you can see here now, it's showing 2021. This user now has access to PII, but there are two things that you need to remember. First, for users using PII, it is important that this email address on their staff record is filled in and it is correct, because we give out 3 notifications for users letting them know when their PII is going to expire. We let them know 30 days in advance, we let them know 15 days in advance, and we let them know 7 days in advance. If that email address is not filled out and it is not the correct email address, they will not get the notifications. So it is important that when you come in here, you verify that their email address is correct and that the date is set up. Once you have done that, you're going to come back up here to the back button and you're going to click back to save the changes that you've made to that record. Then you'll notify the user letting them know, hey, you now have PII access. You must also tell them that once they get PII access, they have to log out, close RMS, and go back in order for them to gain access. So at this point, even though this user does have PII access, they're not going to see anything because they have it logged out. So if they come back and say, hey, I still get insufficient privileges when I click on the QA labor interviews, then you just need to let them know, please go to your RMS and then log back in. So we're going to go ahead and close that. And I have the other instance open. Let me bring that on my screen. Oh. Wrong one. That's this one. And I'm going to go ahead and log this person in. All right, now that they're logged in, we're going to go into our district, our test district here. Once it loads up, we're going to open up the contract. Now, I'm not going to check the staff record for this person because this person is a non-CAC login, so they're not going to have access to that anyways. So going into the contract 1660, the same as before. When they go to the administration tab and they click on the contractor payrolls, they now will have access. As you can see, it changed. It started loading, and now they can see all of the contractor payrolls that are in this folder. I'm going to try and make the screen bigger really fast. There we go. So that way you can see the whole amount. They will also now have access to the labor interviews. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the labor interviews and show you that now it's going to go ahead and load up, and they can go in here and look around and see what they need to see. Hitting the back button, the contract file module, going in there, what you can see now is, see here, this labor is now showing up. And here are the labor interviews and the weekly payrolls. So once they have access, they can now go ahead and go in here and do all of that stuff. The only thing that I haven't shown you was for the archive documents. In order to be able to access those archive documents, you have to have certain district admin rights in order to get in there. This user that I'm using right now does not have those rights, but my other user does. So what I can do is I can show you on this user. I'm going to go back to contract selection. And in here, go into the district office. And then go to the archive contracts. This process is exactly the same as what it was before. The only difference is when you select your contract and you choose the export contract file, you will only be able to download everything if you have PII rights. Not even necessarily PII admin rights, but PII rights. So if you're a PII admin and you try to download this, but you haven't given yourself PII access, then what you will notice is when you go through and you download the documents, it won't actually show any of the files that were under the laborers folder inside the contract file because your user did not have the PII rights at that point in time. But it's the same process. You click on the folder that you want to stick it in and you click OK, and it'll go through and it'll take a few minutes. And for unarchiving, depends on the size of the contract and the district as to how long it will take for that to complete. This one is actually already complete, and once it's complete, what it does is it will put this screen showing you, hey, this is the file that you downloaded. And then you can go through and take a look at the files that are in there. All right, now, that's what will happen with the government. Now what we're going to talk about is what happens with the contractor. How does this affect the contractor, and what does that mean for those users, and how to handle the contractor payroll. So let me pull up my contractor login. So this is the same contract. It's 1660, but this is, as you can see, under contract mode. You can tell because of the brown colors of these buttons right up here. So, contractor needs to submit contractor payrolls every week or month or whatever the policy happens to be for that particular contract. When they do that, what they're going to do is they're going to go to the administration tab, and then they'll go into the contractor payrolls. As that's opening up, it's going to take it a few minutes. There we go. Now, this process is pretty much the same as it was before. You're going to open up a draft payroll, and you're going to enter the payroll number and the number of employees and the amount of time that they work. We're going to say they work in quite a bit. That's for a couple months, let's say that. You can have any comments that you want to add here. And then the key is going to be the document package. So the only thing that's really going to change is here. So say we need to add documents to this document package. These documents may or may not have PII in them, but we want to protect them in case they do have to have PII. So once you're in the document package, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the Add button, and then you'll click on Add from File System. That's going to bring up a dialog box that'll allow you to go to your file that has what you're looking for. So I have saved a couple of documents in here with the PII stuff. So this is the document that I'm going to upload here. And it's going to load into the document package. So there it is. At this point, nothing's changed. They can open it, they can take a look at it, and it'll open up what the document is. It happens to open up on my other screen. And then that's what you'll end up seeing. Now, and then I'm going to click on, so I went ahead and closed that. I click on the Yes button. I'm going to ignore that. And then this is where we are. So at this point, I can go ahead. Oh, I don't need to add anything else. Let me submit for review. So I'm going to click on the Submit Review, and I know I won't be able to read anything. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And they said the document package hasn't been signed. This signature will depend on what it is that they're uploading as to whether or not they'll put a signature. I'm not going to sign the document because it's not needed for my PII document. There's no place for me to sign. So this has now been done. So I'm going to click on the back button. And I don't have to add anything else to this payroll, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the checkbox, Payroll Ready for Review. Now it's going to give me a warning. Are you sure you want to do this? So I'm going to click on Yes because I'm done. And now I'm like, what document did I add in there? I can't remember. So I'm going to click on the document package to open up. And then I'm going to try and open up this attachment. I cannot. At this point, I am not allowed to edit, look at, or see this. And this is so that we can protect the document that was uploaded in the first place and make sure that it doesn't get lost along the way or misplaced or seen by people it should not be seen by. That being said, if the contractor realizes that, oh wait, this is not what I wanted to send to the government, then they have two options. They can't delete the document package because it's already been submitted to the government. So they're going to need to tell the government, hey, I submitted the wrong document, so I'm going to add another one. I'm going to click on this Add button. Choose Yes, and then I'm going to upload the correct file. So in this case, I need to go back to my Add button, and I'm going to go Add from File System again. And then I'm going to select the other one. So that's this document. This is the one that I meant to send the first time. So I'm going to click OK, and it's going to attach the document. Now at this point, I still can't see it because I've already submitted this to the government. So that's going to show up down there, and I need to let my government contact, my poor representative, know that I accidentally submitted the first one and it was not correct. It didn't have the right file. So that means that you can either delete it. Well, it depends. If it's a document that is incorrect and needs to be removed, you will need to ask your government representative to delete that document package for you because you will not be able to delete it. If it is just the wrong week, it's up to you, up to the government and their policy as to whether or not they want to leave it in there or if they want to have it deleted. But the contractor will have to have the government do all of that because at this point, they're not allowed to do that. So I'm going to click this one first, Submit for Review, and then click Yes. And yes, I have not signed the documents. Now, once this is done, I'm going to hit the back button 2 times to get out of this contract payroll edit. And I just need to remember that this is the payroll that we're talking about. And I'm going to go over to my other user, and I'm going to open up the correct contract file. So I'm going to go into 1660 contract. And then once it loads, I'm going to go into the Contractor Payrolls, which is, there it is, the Contractor Payroll modules under administration. Now, at this point, I need to go into this document and take a look at it. As a government, if the contractor tells me that this needed to be deleted, what I can do is I can just simply select it once and then click on the delete button, and then this will take care of that. If the contractor needs to add another document, or if I go in here and I take a look at it and I'm like, okay, let me open up this file and see what we've got here. Once it loads, there we go. Once it loads, here's the document. I see, oh, this is this person. Here's his name, his social security number, his address, his bank account. Wait a minute, that doesn't look like a correct bank account information. So he's missing some stuff that me as a government need. So what I need to do is I need to come in here and do some review notes. Please add the following information. You need information added. However, in the past, we have told you to click on this Return for Corrections button. For contractor payrolls, do not click on this button. Just return the actual payroll to the contractor so that they can go in and add it in a new document package. This will protect this document package from other possible issues. So you'll add your comments down in here. And you'll click on the back button. Once you've clicked on the back button, you're going to click on the box that says payroll rejected. Once you've done that, now you can click on the back button and let the contractor know, hey, your payroll's been rejected. Please give me the following information. So then we go back over to the contractor login. And we're going to refresh this. So occasionally some of these errors will pop up, and because I have so many instances open for switching back between contractor and government, that's kind of what that's going for. So we'll just give it a few seconds and I'll have to log back in. Give me 1 second while I pull that up. And password. Okay. Now I've logged back in, except for I forgot to log in under contractor mode, so I need to go back to the login screen and check this little box down here. And logging back in. So let's see, there we go. Now I have access to my contractor, my prime contract, open up my prime contract, and then from there I can open up the contract file. Actual contract that I'm looking for is 1660, which is in the recent, so I can come here. The other way is you can just type in 1660 here and press enter. All right, now I'm back in the administration, and I'm going to go into the Contractor Payrolls module. Opening up the Contractor Payrolls module, I'm going to go to the Support Center, where you see now it is showing up as Problem Payroll. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up by double-clicking on it. And what I can see is the Problem Payroll. And my comments are not. Usually the comments will show up in here. I didn't save it properly. What you will see is the comments. Yeah, it's not on there right now. So what you will see is the comments will show up here saying what it is that they need to fix and what they need to do. And they won't be able to do anything with this document package. So they cannot add or edit in this case. What they'll need to do is choose this add button to add another document package and go through the same process. So in the document package, they're going to click on the add button. They're going to click on add from file system. And then from here, they're going to select the corrected information and upload that to the document. Once they've uploaded that, they can go in there and, like, this one didn't actually have the right information, so adding more info here. And then we're going to save this. Now, once that's saved, we can close that, and then yes, we want to store it on the document and let that go away, and then we're back to the document package. At this point, the contractor is going to click on Submit for Review. And it says, this document package will read only after this action. Are you sure you want to proceed? Yes, I'm positive I have it right this time. And I haven't signed the document. Yes, I'm going to click OK. Now I'll click on the back button, and again, I will click on Payroll Ready for Review. And it says, are you sure you won't be able to view this after you're done? I'm like, yep, I'm fine. So once the contractor has done that, we'll click on the back button. And then we'll go to the government login. And you will now see that they have another document package with the corrected information in there. And this is all of the information that was added after I opened up the document. So now I'm going to close that document. And that document looks good. I didn't make any changes, but I went ahead and said yes anyways. And I'm going to accept this document package because this one is correct. Are you sure? Yes. Of course, you're always going to get these to make sure that you are actually ready to sign the document package and close it. So now it's ready to send a PCF, but it's not signed. I'm going to click the back button here to go back to the actual, and just click on this checkbox that says payroll accepted, because everything that needs to be done is done at this point in time. And then I'm going to click the back button again to save those changes. And now you can see it says accepted by the government. So that's pretty much everything that has to do with PII changes that have been made to RMS that will be coming out shortly. We're going to go ahead and open it up. Paul, I'm going to send this back over to you for questioning.
Okay, before we take questions, Carrie is going to give us a little bit of a summary about why we're making these changes, how we made these changes, and what prompted these changes. So I'm going to give this over to Carrie. Go ahead, Carrie.
All right. Can y'all still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Making sure the line was still open and everything. Okay. So essentially the reason why we're having to make these changes is because of the cybersecurity of the system. We have to be able to secure any information that's considered PII, which of course most of you probably already know what that is, but it can be things such as your home address, your social security number, payroll ID, things of that nature that a lot of the contractors are submitting as part of their payroll information, and they're not redacting that information. So in order to comply with the cyber requirements, this was a change that had to be made, and unfortunately, it's going to be more inconvenient, probably, at least for our contractors, maybe. But I mean, I hate to say it this way, it's probably the best option we could have come up with. Also, so everybody on this call that dialed in, y'all were identified as district admins. But for the PII situation, there will be 2 district admins per district who will be in charge of granting PII. Everybody else who's a district admin will continue to do what you've been doing, but only these 2 people per district will have the permissions and capability to be able to grant the access to others. So what essentially is going to happen, and this is the bad news that I'm sure everybody's not going to want to hear, but in order to set the correct permissions up for not just the district admins, but so the district admins in charge of PII, for y'all to be able to actually set up the correct permissions and for the actual people who need permission to payroll, what will have to happen is essentially everybody who has access to it right now will have to be stripped of that access. And then they will have to submit a request to their district admin to get access back to it. Now, we're not going to do it overnight. We're not going to say tomorrow it's happening, you're going to lose your access. What we would like to do is to give you a heads up, and we'll follow this up with an email as well, but essentially give you a heads up, give you 10 days, 15 days, however much is needed, to essentially go in and pull anything out that you have in RMS that you may need right now. And then essentially we will strip the access, and then it can be given back once your district admin grants it. One thing that will be required is the date of your last PII training. I believe you can actually get that out of UPass. I believe it's it's easy. You just log in there, and there's a date for that. Pretty much, if you have a CAT card, you've taken PII training. So again, the bad news for everybody is that the permissions will have to be stripped and then reassigned. But again, we're not going to do that just drop of the hat. We'll try to phase it if we can, or we're trying to come up with the best solution. But essentially, it's strip the rights and then have the district admins verify PII dates and then grant the permission back into the payroll. Again, I'll follow this up with an email with some additional details, but that is essentially the path forward right now. So with all that said, I will open it up for questions regarding PII, and then we can move on to other questions and answers and possibly some other enhancements that have been made. Over.
All right, so Jose Gonzalez had a question. The question was, 2 individuals per district for the PII admin may not be enough. Can we do at least 1 per area office?
Yeah, I don't see why that would be an issue. I'll run it by headquarters. We were trying to keep it pretty low, just so we had a handle on who all had permissions. But if we also need to include other offices, then I think we could probably arrange that.
Carrie, this is Barry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How is the PII protected on the contractor side?
So my understanding is that, so we're only in charge of the PII on the government side, which is why we're limiting the access and why we're not allowing the contractor to see what they submit anymore once it's submitted. So as far as the contractor side, it's up to them to protect their information for their employees. But also with us closing it out where they can't access it once they've submitted it, it also keeps other people within their company or within other companies from being able to actually get into payroll within RMS to be able to actually see that information. So it's limiting access overall to whatever they submit.
Right. So they'd have to get their profile and eliminate that data field for everybody except for those who need it, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, again, it's, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically whoever submits the payroll information into RMS on the contractor side, they will submit it, and then it's basically locked down. Nobody else from any contractor at that point can see it. It's not based on, or will the contractor have to go in and take off permissions for some of their folks as well?
Correct. So right now, everything's done inside of the document package area, correct? So when a contractor submits payroll, they submit labor hours or whatever, that's all inside of the document package. What's changed in this future version of RMS that we were displaying on the screen today is that as soon as the contractor submits that document package, poof, it's gone. They don't see it anymore on their side. The government deals with it. It's the government's problem. And from that point forward, the contractor no longer has access to it unless the government sends it back for corrections. Does that answer your question, Barry?
Right. Yeah, but if they, let's say they have a QC that has access to payrolls on the contractor side, they have a PM that's got access to the payrolls on the contractor side, they'll have to go in and revise those user roles, will they not?
The user roles are staying the same. So as far as the contractor is concerned, the only thing that's changed is that as soon as they submit the document package, it disappears from their side. So on the contractor side, nothing really needs to change.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Paul, we had a couple of things pop up on my chat. One of them says, it sounds like payrolls currently accepted in RMS will no longer be accessible for us. Question.
That is correct. So, all right, so when this version goes out and the switch is thrown, all access to PII will be restricted to anybody who does not have a PII date inside of their staff field, okay? So these 2 district admins per district or more, as we explained, will need to go into the RMS staff table and put in dates for when people took their PII training, based on the UPass, right? So when an individual goes into their UPass training, the yearly training to do their PII, the IA, all that other stuff, that date, they need to give that date to their district admin who goes and puts those dates into the staff tables. Without that date, I will have no access to the payroll area. When I go to click on the payroll area, I will show like I don't have access, even if I have a user role that gives me access. Without that date, I'm unable to get access to the payroll area. So yes, if there is no date and we throw this switch, nobody's going to have access to the PII area until the district admin goes in and puts in a date for the select people that have access to PII. Once they put in that date and they have the user roles for it, they'll get access to it. Go ahead.
Hey, Paul, I think what they're asking, though, is like, let's say they have a contract that's 3 years old, and when we flip this switch, so basically if we flip the switch and then the district admin goes in and adds them back in with their PII date, will they have access to all of the payroll information for the past 3 years, or is that not going to be available anymore?
So to answer that question, once the date's put in, they'll have access like it was before. So 3 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday, it'll be as if nothing's changed. So as long as you got that date, that's kind of the key that gets you access to payroll information. As far as the contractor's concerned, all PII that they've submitted to the government is invisible. They can't see it anymore as soon as they submit it. And go ahead.
I have a couple other questions. One question is, when the payroll is rejected, is all of the data removed?
Jennifer, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if the payroll is rejected, it gets sent back to the contractor to modify. So they can go in, delete the data that was there, change it, add more data, and then submit it again.
So that's mostly correct. They won't be able to change the document package. So when this is returned, I'm going to go ahead and open one up. I'm going to change this from accepted to rejected, and then I'll go into the contractor mode and show you that they will have access to pretty much everything they had access before, and everything will still be in there. The only difference is they're not going to be able to do anything with these document packages, especially the one that's been accepted. So we refresh this one, back out, and then go back in. I need to refresh my screen and make sure I did. Oh, I forgot to submit it. So it's very important that you click on this back button when you're in the middle of doing something, because otherwise it won't save. So now that it's saved, let me go back to contractor mode. I'm going back into the contractor payrolls. And then I'll go ahead and open up the one that I just returned. And you see it's here, it's problem payroll. At this point, they have access to look at this, but as you can see over here, the add button, the edit button, they're gone. They can't add anything to this document package. They can't change the document package. What they can do is click on this add button to add another document package. So the data is still there, but they can't see it, they can't change it, and they can't modify it. Does that answer the question?
Yes, from my side.
Yeah, I think so. So one of the questions too was, why can't we have contractors submit payrolls without PII, no address, no social security numbers, etc.? And my answer to that is, well, you can, but one of the issues that was brought up to us about that when we were going through all this was that contracts don't specifically tell the contractors to do that. And so, I mean, as trivial as it may seem, it could be something that they come back and say, well, you didn't tell us we had to do it or whatever. But I'll leave that up to, each person and their contractor and how they want to handle that. The question was, does the payroll still transmit to PCF? Paul, does the payroll
yes,
still transmit to PCF?
That is correct. So yes, as far as PCF goes, in order to get anything to PCF, you have to complete the document package, right? And PCF usually likes things signed. So yes, as far as the document packages, as soon as you complete that document package, that goes off to PCF, just like before.
All right. Next question I have, is if we are not supposed to use the return for correction now, will that option be removed?
At this point, it is not set up to be removed, but it could be if that does need to be set up.
Okay. And then somebody pointed out that in your example, it looked like the document package stayed after it was rejected.
That is correct. The document package will stay there. It's just that the contractor won't be able to do anything with it.
Okay. And that's the last question I have on my chat for right now. So I'll turn it over to y'all.
We've got questions on this chat to address.
Yeah, one of the questions were, can we just connect up to UPass and pull the date from there? And Carrie, I'm not sure if you want to answer that or you want me to try to answer that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, no problem. The question is, why can't we just hook up to UPass and pull the PII date from UPass? So to go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul.
Okay. All right. So to answer that question, UPass is a completely separate database, and to hook up to that database requires a lot of paperwork and permissions. That was something that we looked at, and it's considered, but usually applications like that take a long time. So that's something that we can look into in the future. But right now, unfortunately, it has to be something that your district admin manually puts in. So right now, we don't have that connection to the UPass database and the ability to pull that out. But it was. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You're good.
I was just going to say, there was another question on here from a user who said, I just lost it. Where did we go? There it goes. They're asking, I think this is for Carrie, how are you determining who the initial PII admins will be?
So we reached out through the steering committee and asked them to designate 2 district admins to be responsible for this PII change and granting permission, and they sent in 2 names. And so I can actually email everybody on that list to let you know that you are one of the 2 district admins if you don't know already. But that is how we determined it. Was each district basically sent us 2 names in for the person who'd be responsible for it, and that went through the steering committee folks. Well, I say it was the steering committee. One second. It was the MSC regional construction managers. They reached out to each of the districts.
Okay, and then there was another question. I think we've answered this one, but I just want to make sure. This one's from Melissa. She says, does this mean that the contractor side, anyone on the contractor side who is given access to RMS that for that contract can see the PII submitted on the contractor side? No. So on the contractor side, if you have your stuff is not going to change. The only thing that's affected by the contractor is the payroll. So once the payroll has been submitted, you will not be able to see any of the other documents. So their PII on their systems, they can see that stuff. But the minute they submit it inside RMS, anyone who logs into RMS will not be able to see it on the contractor side. And I'm hoping that answers Melissa's question.
And Carrie, we've got a question. Do we have a date for when this will go live with this update?
We have a date on when we plan to push this out, but I believe we're going to have to probably revise that. So I will send out the official date in an email. But again, we need to give y'all time to go in there and pull anything out that you might need while you're waiting on your permission to be reassigned to you. So if I had to estimate, I would say we would probably start that 10-day clock next week, and then give y'all 10 days to pull everything out and then submit for your permissions again.
Awesome. Thank you.
I got a question, Carrie. We, in the Tulsa district, we've centralized the payroll. There's like all the payrolls are sent to the Tulsa district, and if the contractor utilizes the software outside of RMS to generate their payrolls, then we disable the payroll submodule in RMS, and they just talk to each other through the software. Is that an option to continue to do that, or is this mandatory for the districts to use RMS?
So I will say that it's up to the district and whatever policy that y'all have and however you put it in your contract. We're not trying to change how the district policies are set up. We're just trying to protect the information in RMS that has PII information in it. So however you're currently doing it with that other software or however they're doing it, if that's your district's policy, then, y'all can continue to do it that way if that's what y'all decide to do.
Roger. Okay. Thank you.
Paul, Benita, do y'all have other questions in your chat? Because I'm getting some others in mine, but I don't want to cut y'all off.
I just see one more. So John Stevens was asking how this affects the labor interviews in the daily report, because the QA reps go in and do the daily reports. So this is mostly for the document package area. Depending on how the QA reps deal with labor interviews, do they actually upload documents, or they just put hours in for the daily reports? Because if that's the case, yeah, that's going to affect their ability to go in and put those. Yeah, so they'll most likely need a date then. So if the QA rep goes in for the labor interviews and that's part of their job, they're going to need a PII date. So Jennifer's going to the screen right now for the labor interviews. Go ahead and double click on one of those to open it up.
Yeah, so for these ones, this user has PII access, so we can go ahead and open this up and they can see all of the information that's being entered into this for the labor interviews. So any of the PII data needs to be sent through the document package. So if there's other data that comes from this, when you're doing this, you need to make sure you're putting it in the document package. Don't put any of the PII data in these areas right here. Just make sure you click on the add button and upload a document that way. It's the same as the contractor payrolls. It's going to be add and then add from file system, and then you'll go to wherever the document happens to be saved at that has all that information, and then you'll click on open and it will upload in here. And then once you've completed the document package, it shouldn't be available for anybody else to view. And then click yes. All right.
All right, and the next question I see, if everyone from the core requires a CAT card to access RMS, wouldn't everyone by default have PII training that is valid? So this tracking this date seems somewhat redundant. And Carrie, I'm going to let you answer that question. Andrew answered that question as well. He said that not everyone in RMS requires access to the PII module. So this is kind of a way of locking that down, but go ahead, Carrie.
I agree in a way that it does seem redundant, but Andrew's response, I believe, is correct. And then also, some people have, of course, a username and password instead of an actual, I guess, a CAT card. So, like Andrew said, not everybody needs access, but we do have contractors that do work, for instance, on behalf of the government that don't have CACs. They have username and passwords, and then we have others that do have CACs. But this is a way to be able to track also who has access to that data.
And the last question here is, if a contractor submits payroll documents containing PII and I delete those documents out of RMS and request a new document without the PII, will this change? With this change, are we able to accept this now? And yes, that's still the same case. So the contractor has the ability to send new additional document packages. It's just as soon as they send and complete that document package off, they no longer have access to it. So you can delete that document package and just have them do another one.
Looks like we have another question from Gloria Stein. You're asking if you don't have access to be renewed. Yes. Every time you get your CAT card renewed, that is when you have to get your PII renewed as well. So the training that you go through is a yearly process. So every year when you renew your UPass PII training, you will also have to update it in RMS as well.
All right, Carrie, I think that's all the questions on our side. Go ahead.
All right. So one of the questions was, when we go in and we take out everybody's permissions to this, is it going to stop them from being able to do all their other work that they have to do on all their other projects? And correct me if I'm wrong, but the answer to that is no, because we're only taking away permissions to this function, this feature, to payroll, to the PII, not all of their permissions, correct?
That is correct. So only payroll and the labor interviews area inside of the daily report. So both of those areas will not allow you access unless you have that date.
Okay. I have another question, and I believe I have the answer to it as well, but it says sometimes project engineers need to view payrolls when preparing for mod negotiations, etc. How do we make this information available to PEs? Is it by giving them a PII right? The answer to that is that essentially each district will have to work that out as to what their policy is for getting access or giving access to it. The access to PII must go through the district PII administrators to grant access. So that's really up to each district and how they want to do it. And then somebody said, somebody asked the questions, will RMS alert the contractor submitting payrolls if they have underpaid, worked over 40 hours regular, etc., like the electronic payroll software does?
And to answer that question, right now I don't think RMS has that capability. So that sounds like another piece of software that's run alongside of RMS. But RMS right now only alerts when a payroll has been accepted or rejected in the contract notifications. Over.
Okay. And then somebody asked, how long will it take for permissions to be reassigned, and what exactly do you mean by pulling things out? As far as how long it will take to reassign permissions, that's that's dependent upon the district admins and how long they take to get everybody pushed through. As far as what do I mean by pulling things out, I'm referring to things that are currently already in RMS, I guess in the documents package, that you may need, that, for instance, and I don't know this personally, but I mean, if there's a document in there that you need and you need access to it right now, and we were to turn it off tomorrow, which we're not, until you get your permissions restored, you would need that document. That's what I'm talking about pulling out. Like, I'm just talking about pulling out any information out of there that you might need until your permissions are restored. Another question just came through. If we require our contractors to use an electronic payroll system approved by DOI, is it necessary for them to upload payroll documents in RMS? I mean, I think, again, that's up to the policies of the districts. Go ahead, Paul. You were going to say something?
I was going to say the same thing you were saying. Yeah, it's the district policy, right? So, yep.
Okay.
And we have...
That's the last question I have on my Skype.
Okay, we have a question over here. Is after the first push, who will be the point of contact if a district admin needs to change the PII admin? So I guess the overall question is, how do you know who your PII administrator is?
If it changes, basically.
Yeah.
You would need to notify the PMO, so you can send me an email, and then we can identify who that new person is and then send that out if we need to the users in that area.
And if the users need to have a different, sorry, go ahead.
But also there's a SharePoint site that I'll send the link out to that essentially you can go on and see who your district admin is or who's been assigned. And so we will keep that updated if people change. We'll keep that updated. You could always go there and check it as well. Sorry, go ahead, Jennifer.
What I was going to say is if they need to change whoever the PII admin is, they would have to get in contact with us, but that has to come through the PMO. So if your district needs to change who the PII person, admin, is for your district, you will need to get in contact with the PMO, and the PMO will get in contact with us so that we can make those changes for you.
Okay.
That's the last question I have.
Okay, we have a few more questions here. So we have, will LCP tracker and Emars info ever be able to be downloaded into RMS? I'll let you answer that. Yeah.
I will address at least Emars. We have discussed that internally. I know I've been told it was a feature that was available, I think, in 2.38 and not in 3.0. We know the reasons. I believe that actually might be in one of the enhancement requests as well. So I will say it's not currently in there, but I will not say it's ruled out. It is something that has been discussed and is still being discussed. So I don't have a final answer for you on it now, other than to say that we are currently in discussions about adding that back or not.
All right. Jose Gonzalez is asking if he can have a list of RMS administrators. Is that something he'd go to you for?
For every district or just his district?
Right, I was going to ask, all district admins or just the ones for his district or just the PII?
I think he's asking about the PII admin because he says, can we have a list like the RMS admin? So I think what he's asking is can we have a list of the PII admins?
Yes, we have that, and again, I mean, we have an Excel document, but it's also on the SharePoint that I'll send an email out here shortly with the link.
Okay, then we have another question. It says, do the PII admins need to keep records of whom they have entered for PII access? The system doesn't need you to keep records of that because that information will be in there. It's up to the district policy, I think, so I'll let Carrie answer that one as to whether or not you guys need to keep records individually or not.
So the question is, do they basically need to keep record of who they give access to? Is that what it is?
Correct.
So I'll ask a question to you, Jennifer, and you may have just said this, and maybe I'm asking it a different way, but so I have two questions. One, the system is going to have the date in there, but there's probably not a way, I guess, is there a query or something that you think that could be run in the future that would pull everybody that has PII information in that district so that they wouldn't have to keep an actual record? They could just run a query and all the names would pop up that have that access. And then part two of my question is, and I don't know if this was asked or not, but when that date rolls around and it's about to expire, are we going to be able to send out notifications, for instance, sort of like UPass does, where it's, you know, you have 30 days, this person has 30 days to update their date or to take PII training, and then it's like, I know we've talked about it internally, but it's like 30 days, 15 days. Once it gets to a certain point, it's daily. So those notifications. But for the first part, I guess that's my question.
All right, so I'll answer the second part of that question first. And the answer is yes, we are going to be sending the users individually notifications that their PII is getting ready to expire at 30 days, 15 days, and 7 days. And then they'll also get another notification once it actually has expired. So the day after it expires, they'll get another email saying, hey, your PII access has been revoked. You will need to contact your PII admin and have them reestablish your PII access. For the first question as to whether or not we can have a query run, I think the answer is probably, but at this time, I don't know that that's in the plan. I'm going to ask Paul to answer that question.
So our DBA said yes, we can do a query to pull all the PII enabled individuals. That's easy for us to do.
But by district, so like if one district wanted to see it, you wouldn't have to run everybody's, you could just run theirs.
Right. But it's something that we have to do on our side, yeah, for now.
Okay. Okay, I have a couple of questions on mine. Have the PI admins been assigned yet, and has there been a data call for this yet? Yes, they've been assigned, or at least we've been given their names. Has there been a data call for this yet? We have not sent anything out yet about this. We wanted to let all the district admins know this was coming before we actually released anything on it. And that way, if people had questions, y'all would already know what's going on. You would possibly have some answers, or you'd know who to point them to. And then the next question is, well, the next question is not exactly about this. It says, we have a lot of issues with RMS being down. Will that continue to be the case? So I'm just going to be totally upfront and honest that the issues that we have been having, I'll say for the last year with downtime has been, and I have to say this carefully, it's not been due to issues with RMS itself. It's been due to issues with the data centers or the servers or our network, things that are outside of our control. But once we know that RMS is down or we see that it's down, our guys at the RMS Center immediately start trying to figure out why. And we immediately start that coordination with CEIT to see that, one, they're aware, two, we put in a ticket for the issue so we can track it, and then also what their estimated time of resolution is, and even what is the resolution. And sometimes these things have to be escalated. But unfortunately, for the past year, the things that have happened have not been due to things specifically with RMS. It's not been like there's a bug pushed in from RMS that caused it to go down or anything. It's been due to issues with things that the EIT has to handle. All right. I don't have any more questions on my chat right this second. I didn't know we can continue to have questions, but I also wanted to be able to allow time, Paul. I think we talked about discussing a few of the enhancements that were big ticket items like bulk downloads or additional signatures or things of that nature. Do you have a list that you want to read off or anything?
There's one more question, if I may, or did you want to move on?
Go ahead with the question.
Okay, the last question is, could you show the PII administrators similar to how the full district admins are currently listed in RMS for each district? So they're asking for, you know how you can see you can sort by full district admins or office admins? They're asking us to do a feature where we can show the PII admins in the RMS staff view.
I have no issue with that.
All right, so we will definitely take that down.
So in this case, would the individual put in a request through the CCV?
I'm sorry, Benita, I didn't hear you.
So Benita was asking, does the user need to put in a request with the CCB to get this change enacted, as it's a new requirement?
No.
Okay.
No.
Perfect. Alrighty. And I'm sorry, Carrie, what did you ask me before that? I was reading the question.
Enhancements. Some of the big ticket items that have been completed for enhancements.
Alrighty.
I believe there's 15 that have been implemented, but I know I was saying things sort of like bulk download capability or additional signatures or things that are just kind of big ticket items that would be helpful to at least show.
Got it. So right now, the version that we're working on, it's going to have the ability to, let's see here. I'm sorry, I'm hitting a wall here. Give me 1 second.
I can show them about the multiple signatures with the QA reports, I think. Let me check if this
Could you do that?
All right, so I'm going to go back to the contract selection, and then I'm going to go into 1660. We've allowed users to sign multiple QA reports at the same time. So I'm going to go into the QA QC tab, and then open up the QA daily reports. Let's see here. This one, no, this one doesn't have it. I have to open up another instance in order to show that one. Do you want me to go ahead and do that? It'll take me a few moments to get it up and running.
Oh, no, that's okay. So right now, some of the change requests that we're working on has to do with the mass signing of daily reports. So that was something that was approved by the CCB. One of the most requested features that we've had is the ability to go in and mass sign all the daily reports instead of doing it one by one. Right now, you have to go into a daily report. You have to have the representative go in and sign it, the QA, and then the PE needs to go in and sign it depending on how your district operates. So we're developing the ability for both the QA to go in and mass sign a whole bunch of daily reports at once, and then the PE to go in and sign all the daily reports, complete off the document package, and send that off to PCF. Another feature is going to be, that was approved by the CCB, is the ability for the contractor to delete SDF files that haven't been approved yet. Those are kind of some of the bigger changes coming in the near future. Let's see here.
She also wanted the bulk downloads, which I believe the version we're running right now has that. Do you want me to show that one?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so for the bulk downloads, what you're going to do is I'm going to take a shortcut and click on this contract menu up here to go back to the main screen. And at this point, I'm going to go to import and export, and I want to do document package export. In the document package export, what you can see is these are all of the document packages that you can do bulk downloads with. So you can select all of the ones that only have signed documents. You can either do all of the QC daily reports, or you can only do the reports that don't have document packages versus the ones that do, the reports by themselves, the document packages by themselves, and you can do the same thing with the transmittal logs, the 4025 and government remarks only, all the documents that are in the document package, all the documents in contractor submittal item document packages, which is a little bit different, and then all the documents in government transmittal document packages, or the government submittal item document packages. So you can choose which one of these you would like to be able to work with, and then you'll click on this button up here and say Get Documents. It's going to ask you where you want to save that, so I'm just going to pick this folder right here, and if I want, I can make a new folder. I'm not going to do that at this time. I'm just going to put it in here, and then I'm going to click on this OK button. It's going to sit there and it's going to start exporting the documents. The time that it takes for these documents to export will depend on how many files it needs to download and your network connection at the time. So if you have a really strong network connection and you don't have a whole lot of files, this is not going to take a long time at all. But if you have a lot of files, that might take a little more time on a strong connection. But when you have a weaker connection, it could take quite a bit of time before it actually shows up. And see, this one finally did complete. It says, if your requests contain any files that have been exported to blah, 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 blah. So then it says, okay, it's done. And then I can navigate to that folder and I should be able to see it. So let me pull that up so I can show you those files. Make sure I'm in the right area. It's this one. As you can see, I have a whole bunch of files in here. I probably next time would actually create a separate folder specifically for this particular contract with the contract ID on it, so that way I don't have it mixed up with all of the other documents that I have in that folder. But that's the only thing. So then all of the documents that I wanted are now here. And Carrie, what else did you want us to go over?
Possibly the archive feature and the mass export of transmittal packages.
Okay, what I just did actually is the mass export of the transmittal packages, because that can be found here under this document package export under import export module. For the archived, if you go back to contract selection to go to the main screen for the district, you're going to go into district office, and then you'll click on the archived contracts. So once you open up the archived contracts, this is a list of all of the contracts that have been archived for the district. Say you need certain files from these particular things. What you're going to do is you're going to select all of the ones that you need access to, and you're going to click on export the contract files. Once you click on the export, it's going to bring up a dialog box that's going to say, okay, where do you want to put this? I'm actually going to put this in PII, and then I'm going to put this in this folder. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make a new folder. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to make new folder, and then I'm going to call this, these ones are going to be archived contracts, because there's more than one in there. And then I'm going to hit the enter key, and I'm going to say OK. And then it's going to start exporting all of the documents. And once it's done, it will actually bring up the folder that it put in there. And as you can see, there's nothing in this, which means that those two contracts that I showed didn't have any contract files to be downloaded. So if you ever see it comes up like this and nothing shows in here, that's because there are no contract files to download for that particular contract. Does that answer the question for that one?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, so over the last few months, we've had quite a few change requests approved by the CCB. Some of them that you'll be able to see and notice right away, such as the daily report. The selection view inside the daily report lets you know whether or not it's been sent to PCF, whether or not it's been completed. We have the ability for the government to go in and create RFIs like 2.38 did. We have the ability for custom specification sections in the contract setup. As well as better updates on the QC daily screen. So both the QA and QC daily report selection screen have, on the outside. So, without having to go in and look at every single daily report, you can see which one's been completed. One of the things that we did was the archiving in RMS 3, batch archiving, unarchiving, and we have the ability to do multiple prep and initial inspections now, and adding extra notifications for contractor payroll inside of the contract notifications. So quite a few of those are going through. The mass signing of daily reports is what we talked about. That's what's coming in the next few versions. Same for the ability for the SDEF file to be deleted on the contractor side when it hasn't been approved yet. So there's quite a few more coming as well in the near future. But those are kind of the big ticket items that the CCB has approved. We worked with them. They give us a list of requirements. We go through and implement them. So there's been quite a bit of work done on those.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, I got another question in the chat. It says, to the SDEF schedule, it's limited to 33 characters. Can you increase these characters? I don't know if that's a capability that can be done from a technical standpoint. I guess the question would be, how many characters does it need to be? I mean, I guess I don't quite have an answer for that just yet in terms of how many characters it should be. It's something that we can obviously discuss with headquarters, but I don't think that's a huge thing to ask. But Paul, you'd have to tell me, I mean, is that an issue in terms of being able to do it from a technical standpoint?
From a technical standpoint, not usually. So a lot of the field requirements in RMS, that's always been something that we've dealt with, right? So the database, you have to go into the database and you say, okay, this field, every field inside of RMS corresponds to an Oracle database, and usually you have to put a limit on the size of what goes in there. Back in the day, a lot of those fields were limited because of the old software, right? RMS 3 is pretty much backwards compatible with RMS 2.38. So a lot of the field space requirements come from that old RMS 2.38 requirement. If we increase that space for that field without changing RMS 2.38, it'll cause the program to crash, right? Or 2.38 to crash. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of these fields kind of have archaic lengths. But for a lot of these fields, it's real easy to extend them. You go in the database, you change the field length requirement, you update the software, make sure it doesn't break 2.38. So, what we really need to know is exactly what area you're talking about that needs to be increased. I do know with the SDEF import, a lot of that stuff has to be backward compatible with 2.38, which is why it has some of those archaic field length restrictions.
Paul, this is Michael.
Hey, Michael, go ahead.
We also, for the SDEF specifically, are limited by the specification in the schedule or the
SDEF file?
Yeah, so there's an actual specification for the format of the SDEF file, so we're limited by that too.
That's right. So Michael's talking about the standard data exchange format, the SDEF file. That has limitations in itself that we can't change. So if that's coming from there, we can't touch any of those requirements because that would break our compatibility with Primavera. So I just need to know exactly where what field you're talking about. If it's an RMS only field, that's kind of easy for us to do as long as it doesn't break too much on 2.3 side. But if you contact us and let us know exactly where, like a screenshot with the circle around what field you're talking about, we can usually get a reply back to you on that.
Yeah, and again, like, I know it sounds maybe like it's kind of a trivial thing that we have to talk to headquarters about, but one of the things that I know that we all kind of think about is where's the line on how many characters something needs to be, not just for the system itself, but then for printing and everything else. So it's something that I'll have to take to headquarters and say, are you okay with us increasing the number of characters for this field? They may have a reason, of course, they may have a reason why they say no, or they may say yes. I sent a question out in my chat. I know everybody can't see mine, so I'll just ask this out loud. Does everybody know who your CCB rep is? And if not, I believe we have a list that I can send out for that, but I won't if nobody needs it. Okay, I got somebody who said, no, I do not. So that's good enough for me in the chat. I will send it out. I'll send it along with the link to the SharePoint whenever I send that out in just a little bit. Over. All right, so Paul, do we want to just open up the line for questions?
It's up to you. I have about 3 questions here in our chat on the Skype side. Do you want me to go through those real quick?
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
So we have from Nathan, we have each contract which receives payroll requires payroll to be reviewed for compliance. Usually this check is performed by an individual working directly on each project. Who will have the eyes on the payroll for review? 2 people from each district does not seem like enough. Each resident engineer, project engineer, and in many cases, construction control representatives need access to payroll. So the 2 people that have the date ability are the people that grant access to payroll. So we're making these 2 people district admins. So the district admins go in and say, you have access to get into payroll. And to give you access, I'm going to put a date in on your contractor staff field that says you have PII compliance. Once that date's put in and they have the role to access payroll, they'll be able to go in and deal with payroll. So it's envisioned that more than just a couple people will have access to payroll, especially when you're dealing with thousands of contracts. So those two people are the only people that are going into the staff area and putting in dates for every staff. The next question is, will the bulk download feature include modifications and pay estimates? These are common FOIA requests. So yes, we get those a lot, especially from auditors and like Freedom for Information Act and all that stuff. The idea is that yes, in the future, as change requests come in from the CCB, that more and more areas will have the ability to mass download, but we're adding it section by section. And I lost my place. Give me a few seconds to get back. We have.
The last one I see is, will the district administrators ever be able to delete contracts and also be able to delete users?
Yes. So from the founding of RMS 3.0 and RMS 2.38, deletion of contracts was never something that was able to be done. Yes, 2.3 had a delete button, but it did the exact same thing that the archive button did. It was just named differently. So RMS 3.0 never had the ability to delete contracts. We had quite a few districts tell us that no user ever, not even the admin, should have the ability to delete a contract. Well, that became a problem when, contracts were accidentally added or whatnot. But right now, the archive feature is kind of that way of putting a contract off of the selection view. But as far as deletion, on our side, we've been told not to ever allow deletion. That may change from the CCB or the PMO, but that's the last I've heard from that. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but as far as being able to delete users, we've been told to highly encourage marking inactive, because when you delete users, their signature, their reference to all the stuff that they did in contracts prior goes away. And that causes problems when you're unarchiving and archiving contracts or looking at old data, because it's expecting, hey, this person signed this RFI, or hey, this person created this RFI. When you delete a user, that causes a lot of problems in the database, where the database goes and says, hey, I know who created this, but now it's not linking to that staff record anymore, and then you have problems that way. So in the past, we've been told if you can mark a user inactive versus delete, that is much preferred, especially when it comes to data continuity, especially for old contracts. And again, that may change from the CCB and the PMO based on, directives from headquarters and whatnot. And let's see here. PII admins are the gatekeepers for all users that can access PII. That is correct. Yep, that's why we're doing this. And yep, Jennifer answered that, sorry. Is it possible to have RMS autofill quarterly contractor payroll records, the NG form 3180? That's been a question that's been asked a few times. That's got to go through the CCB, the PMO, as a new feature request or a new requirement. So it's definitely possible. Definitely send it up the chain. And I've heard that question before, so I know if you ask it, it'll definitely count as a tally towards the number of people asking for that feature with the CCB. And I think that's all the questions on our side.
Okay, I don't want to have mass chaos on the phone, but I will say that if there are people who are on the phone that potentially aren't looking at their screen, or anybody really who has questions, if you'd like to ask them out loud or put them in the chat, feel free to do so. I'll just stay quiet for a few minutes, and then if nobody says anything, then I think we're okay. But if anybody has a question, feel free to ask it at this point. Oh, and you may have to, what is it called, *6 to unmute the line?
That's correct. If you're on your PC, just hit the mute button again. And if you're on the phone, do *6 to unmute your phone. That's correct, Ted. Yeah, that causes a ton of problems. So quite a few districts have asked us not to allow any deletion of staff because of issues just like that. We used to have problems with 2.38, especially when you delete staff records, where it would cause some screens to crash. So yeah, deleting is highly not recommended.
I will say there's one other thing that I guess we haven't mentioned that I'll go ahead and mention, and that has to do with customized reports. We are having to change the software that is used for developing those reports. It's in transition right now. It's in process. I believe the anticipation or the anticipated time frame to have it be able to roll out, I believe, is sometime in December. But just know that that is something that we are aware of, something that we're working on as well. And also placement, I know is a big ticket item. We are looking at that. It's being reworked right now with a working group. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that we're aware of some of these issues and we are working on them, even though you may not see an update on them very often. They are being worked in the background. But
Hey, Carrie.
yes.
I feel like the users have a lot more questions than we do time. Can we figure out what we can do to reschedule, to have another session, or do you just, because if we keep going, we run into the developers on the phone are not
right. So what I would suggest is if anybody still has questions, please send those. You can send them directly to me, and I'll put them in a folder. And essentially what we can do is we can hold another session if need be, or if there's just a few questions, we can send out the answers to everybody at one time. So again, if you do still have questions, just feel free to send me an email, and I'll take care of it from there. So with that, I think it sounds like we're pretty well done for the day, Benita. Do y'all have any closing remarks? Paul, Jennifer, y'all got anything else?
Nope.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just going to say, I don't have anything else, just to remind you that the PII admins set the date only, and that date has to be updated yearly, but the users will get notifications for that. Paul?
That's correct. So inside of the staff area, the notifications are set up so that, just like your UPass training, when you're so many days out, you get emails. The closer you get, it starts bugging you more and more frequently. That's designed inside of RMS so that as long as that email address is correct inside of your staff table, which is very important, make sure you get that email address put in there, then you'll get PII expiration notices. So other than that, thank you all very, very much. We really appreciate your time and your questions and your support in helping make RMS better for everyone. So thank you very much.